Tonight, you are going to do something almost none of your ancestors ever could. You are going to lie down completely flat. Stretch out. Close your eyes. And trust the dark entirely. You will not tend a fire. You will not listen for predators. You will not stay half awake in case something moves outside. You will simply switch off. Fully. Completely. For 8 uninterrupted hours. That feels normal to you. It feels like the only way sleep works. Now imagine telling a Lakota warrior from 300 years ago how you sleep. He would not be impressed. He would be confused. Because lying flat on your back, arms out, completely unconscious and defenseless in the dark, was not how most Native Americans slept for most of their history. Many of them slept sitting up. Or propped. Or leaning. Half awake, half gone, in positions that would destroy your back in 20 minutes. And the deeper you look into why, the stranger it gets. Because the answer is not what you expect. It is not about comfort. It is not about tradition. It is about something much older. Something still running quietly inside your brain right now, even as you watch this. The story of how Native Americans actually slept is the story of what sleep really is, and why the way you do it tonight might be the strangest version of it in all of human history. Here is something nobody tells you about sleep. The flat, horizontal, fully stretched out position you consider completely natural, is not natural at all. It is extraordinarily new. For most of human history, across most cultures on Earth, lying completely flat to sleep was either uncomfortable, dangerous, impractical, or simply not how it was done. The version of sleep you think of as default, alone, flat, 8 solid hours in a dark room, is a product of the last few hundred years of human civilization. It required walls thick enough to block wind. Zero locks strong enough to stop intruders. A world tame enough that you could afford to go completely unconscious without someone staying half awake to watch. For thousands of years before that, almost nobody had those things. And Native Americans, across the Great Plains, the Arctic, the eastern woodlands, the desert Southwest, lived in a world where none of those guarantees existed. Predators moved at night. Rival groups moved at night. Temperatures dropped to levels that killed the careless. Fire needed tending through the dark hours or it died, and a dead fire in a plains winter could mean a dead family by morning. In that world, sleep looked completely different. Not because Native Americans were primitive or less evolved. Zero, because they were rational. Because the version of sleep that makes sense when the dark is genuinely dangerous is not the version you practice in your temperature-controlled bedroom behind a locked door. It is something older. Lighter. More watchful. And understanding it will change how you think about the 8 hours you are about to spend unconscious tonight. To understand how Native Americans slept, you have to start with fire. Because fire did not just keep people warm. Fire organized everything about how night worked. Inside a teepee on the Great Plains, the central fire was not optional. Zero, it was the difference between surviving the night and not. A fire burning low through the dark hours held the interior temperature above freezing while outside the world dropped to -30. Let it die, and the temperature inside began dropping within minutes, slowly at first, then faster, cold air pushing in through every gap in the hide cover. Someone had to tend that fire. Through the night, as the rest of the family slept, someone sat with it. Feeding it carefully. Not too much, too large a fire consumed fuel that might be needed tomorrow. Not too little, a fire allowed to drop too low was harder to rebuild and burned precious time and warmth in the process. This meant that genuine, total, flat on your back unconscious sleep was a luxury that could not always be afforded by everyone simultaneously. In most Native American households, sleep was not a synchronized 8-hour shutdown. Zero, it was layered, staggered, with different family members drifting in and out of deeper and lighter sleep at different points through the night. Researchers studying the few remaining traditional communities that still live close to fire-based life have found exactly this pattern. In a zero study of 3 hunter-gatherer groups in Tanzania, Namibia, and Bolivia, scientists tracking sleep with wrist monitors found that across any given sleeping group, at almost any point in the night, someone was awake. Not on a formal watch rotation. Not deliberately. Simply because people of different ages, different levels of exhaustion, and different natural sleep rhythms drifted in and out of sleep at different times, creating what researchers called an accidental sentinel system. There was almost no point in the night when the entire group was fully unconscious at once. Native American communities on the Great Plains operated on the same principle. Sleep was communal, staggered, and oriented around the fire. Which meant bodies were arranged around it, angled toward it. Zero sitting or leaning or propped in positions that kept the fire visible. Kept smoke from drifting directly into faces. And allowed the person tending it to shift position and feed it without disturbing those sleeping more deeply nearby. Here is the part that most people find genuinely unsettling. Because it is about you. Right now. Researchers who study sleep across cultures have found something consistent: the sleeping positions people adopt are not random. They are shaped by perceived safety. And the human body, when it feels genuinely safe, sleeps differently than when it does not. Lying completely flat, arms out, fully extended, this is the position of total surrender. Physiologically, it is the position that signals the nervous system that the environment is completely safe. Zero, that no threat requires readiness, that the body can release every muscle and go fully under. It is also, not coincidentally, the most vulnerable position a human body can be in. Slowest to wake from. Slowest to rise from. The furthest possible from standing, running, or fighting. For thousands of years, on the Great Plains, in the forests of the Northeast, in the Arctic, that level of surrender was not available. The environment did not earn that trust. So the body adapted. Or rather, it stayed adapted. Because the nervous system's default setting, built across hundreds of thousands of years of human evolution, is not full surrender. Zero, it is watchful rest. Semi-conscious. Position to wake fast. Many documented accounts of Native American sleeping practices, recorded by early European observers, missionaries, and later anthropologists, describe sleeping positions that modern Westerners found immediately striking. Propped against teepee poles, seated and leaning forward, resting against other family members rather than flat on the ground. Not because flat ground was unavailable. Because the body chose something else. Among some Great Plains tribes, men returning from a hunt or a scouting journey were documented sleeping in sitting positions almost immediately upon stopping. Not lying down, not fully relaxing, but dropping into a light, recoverable sleep in whatever position they arrived in. Because the journey was not necessarily over. 0 because the dark was not necessarily safe. 0 because the body that stays half ready takes half the time to be fully ready again. 0 This is not a Native American quirk. 0 This is ancient human hardware, the same hardware still running in you, suppressed by the safety of your locked room and your soft bed, but not gone. 0 It expresses itself every time you sleep lightly in an unfamiliar place. 0 Every time you wake up immediately at an unexpected sound. 0 Every time you cannot fully relax in a new environment until something in you decides, without language, that the dark can be trusted. 0 The first night in a hotel. 0 The first night in a new house. 0 The first night sleeping outdoors. 0 Your brain does not fully sleep the same way. Part of it remains more alert. Scientists call this the first night effect. One hemisphere of the brain, especially the left side, stays slightly more vigilant in unfamiliar surroundings. It listens. It samples the environment. It keeps one hand on the door. Native American sleep was not primitive sleep. It was first night sleep as a way of life. Because every night was, in some sense, a first night. 0 The weather could change. The fire could die. Animals could move. People could approach. Children could stir. A storm could tear through camp. So sleep remained flexible. Alert. Responsive. It did not collapse into the helpless stillness we now associate with rest. 0. And that is why sitting sleep makes sense. A person sleeping upright can wake faster. Can hear better. Can breathe differently around smoke. Can protect body heat. Can keep tools, weapons, children, or the fire within reach. Sitting sleep was not about being comfortable. It was about keeping the body close to action. In a teepee, space mattered. A fully stretched adult body took up valuable floor area. 0. Multiply that by 6, 8, 10 people, and the interior became unusable. But seated or curled sleepers could fit around the fire. Children could be placed in the warmest zone. Elders could be protected from drafts. Adults could remain near the entrance, the fire, or the edges. Every position had meaning. Every body became part of the night's design. The sleeping arrangement was architecture. Heat architecture. Safety architecture. 0. Social architecture. The 8-hour block might be the invention. And Native Americans, living in full darkness every night, may never have abandoned the older pattern at all. So why did Native Americans sleep sitting up? Because the dark was not safe. Because the fire needed tending. Because the cold ground stole warmth from anyone who trusted it too completely. Because the body that stays half-ready is the body that survives. And because sleep, real, ancient, human sleep, was never the private, flat, fully unconscious 8-hour surrender that mattress companies have spent a century convincing you is the only correct option. It was communal. 0. It was light. It was staggered across the night in 2 pieces with a quiet, fire-tended middle. And it was oriented around the one thing that made the dark survivable, the fire, the group, and the body that never fully let go of its readiness. Tonight, when you lie down flat in your warm room behind your locked door, with no fire to tend and no dark outside that genuinely requires your vigilance, notice it just for a second. You are doing something almost none of your ancestors ever could afford to do. You are trusting the dark entirely. That is not the natural thing. That is the luxury. If this changed how you think about sleep, let me know in the comments. And subscribe for more deep dives into how Native Americans actually lived.